By the third week of August, most of the flowers sitting in garden centers right now will be dead. Not because you did anything wrong. Not because of the heat, exactly. It's because the flashy new hybrids on the shelf this spring were bred for one thing: to look perfect in a 6-inch pot under grow lights for about 6 weeks, so they sell fast. Heat tolerance, drought resilience, the ability to survive a real August without you fussing over them every single day, that was never the goal. That's not what they were bred for. But there's a whole category of flowers, the ones your grandmother grew, the ones that used to line every farmhouse walkway in this country, that were never bred for anything except surviving. No irrigation systems, no misting, no coddling, just sun, dry soil, and whatever rain showed up. And they're still around today because they simply refuse to die. Today I'm going to walk you through the ones that hold up best when August turns brutal. If you're someone who wants a garden that looks good without babysitting it every afternoon, stick with me, because by the end of this list, you're going to look at that garden center completely differently. Let's start. Before we get into the list, I want you to understand why this happens, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Modern hybrid flowers are bred for a very specific set of traits: uniform bloom size, bright color that photographs well, and a compact shape that fits nicely in a plastic six-pack at the store. Breeders aren't lying to you about any of this. They're just optimizing for what sells off the shelf, not what survives in your yard in week 11 of a heat wave. Old-fashioned varieties, sometimes called heirlooms, sometimes just the old kind, went through a completely different filter. They survived because generations of regular people replanted the seeds that made it through the worst summers and let the weak ones go. That's not marketing. That's just decades of the toughest plants being the ones that got saved. So if you've ever felt guilty standing over a wilted flower bed in August, wondering what you did wrong, I want you to hear this clearly. It's very possibly not you. It might just be the wrong flower for the job. Now let's fix that. List item 1. Zinnias. The first flower on this list is one almost every gardener over 60 already has some memory of, because it's the flower your mother or grandmother almost certainly grew: the zinnia. Here's the claim that might surprise you. Zinnias don't just tolerate heat. They actually seem to bloom harder the hotter it gets, as long as they've got sun and reasonably drained soil. This isn't a fluke. Zinnias originated in the hot, dry grasslands of Mexico, which means the plant's entire genetic history is built around surviving intense sun and irregular rainfall. Here's how to use them. Plant zinnia seeds directly in the ground after your last frost. They don't love being transplanted, so starting them where they'll stay is your best bet. Give them full sun, at least 6 hours a day, and don't overwater. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes new gardeners make with zinnias is loving them too much. Too much water and too rich soil actually makes them more prone to mildew. These are not high-maintenance flowers. They want to be left alone. A bonus most people don't know: zinnias are one of the single best flowers for attracting butterflies and hummingbirds of any annual, hybrid, or heirloom. If you've ever wanted a garden that draws in monarchs, this is one of your best tools. And here's the thing: zinnias are just the beginning. The next flower on this list is one that most people walk right past at the garden center because it looks almost too delicate to survive a hot summer. It does the opposite of what you'd expect. List item 2. MossRose/Portulaca. This next one might be the single toughest flowering plant I'm going to show you today, and it looks nothing like it. MossRose, sometimes called Portulaca, has these small, almost succulent-like leaves and delicate paper-thin blooms in bright pink, orange, yellow, and red. It looks fragile. It is the furthest thing from fragile. MossRose is actually a succulent at heart. Its leaves store water the same way a cactus does, which is exactly why it can go through a 2-week dry spell in cracked, gravelly soil and come back blooming the next time it rains. In fact, MossRose often performs worse in rich, well-watered garden beds. It evolved to thrive in poor, sandy, sun-baked soil, which makes it perfect for that impossible strip along your driveway or sidewalk where nothing else survives. Here's how to use it. Scatter the seeds directly on top of the soil in a sunny spot. Don't bury them, they need light to germinate. And once they're established, basically leave them alone. Water only when the soil is bone dry. This is one of the few flowers where underwatering is safer than overwatering. The bonus benefit here is one most people never notice. MossRose blooms open in the morning and close by afternoon on cloudy days, which means it's essentially a living weather indicator in your garden. Grandmothers who grew this flower for decades used to say you could tell what kind of day it was going to be just by watching when the blooms opened. Now, if zinnias are the reliable workhorse and MossRose is the drought survivor, the next flower on our list might be the most old-fashioned of them all. One you may not have seen in years, but one that used to be in nearly every American front yard. List item 3, 4 o'clocks. This next flower has a story behind its name that most people don't know, and it's one of my favorites to explain. 4 o'clocks get their name because, historically, their blooms open in the late afternoon, right around 4 o'clock, and stay open through the evening, releasing a sweet fragrance that was often used as a natural signal that it was time to start supper. Before people had reliable clocks in every room, this flower genuinely served as a kind of garden timepiece. But the reason it belongs on this list isn't the folklore, it's the root. 4 o'clocks grow from a tuberous root, similar to a dahlia, which allows the plant to store energy and water underground. That means even in the driest, hottest stretch of August, the plant has a reserve to draw from that most annuals simply don't have. In warmer zones, that root can even survive winter and come back the following year, getting bigger and more established with each passing season. Some 4 o'clock plants have been known to live and rebloom for decades in the same spot. To grow them, plant seeds or tubers in a sunny to partly sunny location after the danger of frost has passed. They're genuinely forgiving of poor soil, and once established, they need very little supplemental watering. One caution worth mentioning: the seeds and other plant parts aren't meant to be eaten, so if you have pets or grandkids who like to put things in their mouths, plant these somewhere supervised, the same as you would with many ornamental garden plants. The bonus most people miss: because they bloom into the evening, 4 o'clocks are one of the best flowers for attracting moths, including the hummingbird moth, which is genuinely one of the more magical things you can watch in a summer garden at dusk. Now, before we go to the next flower, I want to pause here, because this is a great moment for you to tell me something. If you grew up with any of these flowers, zinnias, MossRose, 4 o'clocks, in your family's garden, I'd genuinely love to hear about it in the comments. Tell me who grew them. Was it your mother, your grandmother, a neighbor down the street? These flowers carry memories, and I read every single comment, so don't be shy. And if you're finding this helpful so far, hitting that like button genuinely helps this video reach other people who are standing in a garden center right now, about to buy the wrong flowers for their yard. It takes 2 seconds, and it makes a real difference for a small channel like this one. All right, let's keep going, because the next flower on this list might be the toughest one yet. List item 4, Cosmos. Cosmos is one of those flowers that looks almost too airy and delicate to survive real heat. Tall, thin stems, feathery foliage, and blooms that look like they belong in a watercolor painting. And yet Cosmos might be one of the most drought and heat-tolerant annuals you can plant, full stop. Here's why. Cosmos actually originated in the dry plains and roadside ditches of Mexico and Central America, growing in poor, rocky soil with almost no help from anyone. That history means the plant genuinely performs better in lean, average soil than in rich garden beds. Too much fertilizer or too much water tends to produce a plant that's all leggy foliage and very few blooms. To grow Cosmos, direct sow seeds in full sun after the last frost, and resist the urge to fertilize heavily. Once established, Cosmos is remarkably self-sufficient. Many gardeners find that after the first year, Cosmos will actually reseed itself, coming back year after year from dropped seed without any replanting at all. The bonus benefit here, Cosmos is one of the single best cut flowers for a simple porch bouquet, and it holds up in a vase for a surprisingly long time, often 5 to 7 days, which makes it one of the most practical flowers on this list if you like bringing blooms indoors. Coming up next is a flower that a lot of people dismiss as just a border plant, but it might be the single hardest working flower on this entire list. List item 5, Marigolds. Marigolds get a bit of an unfair reputation as a boring, basic garden flower. The kind of thing you plant along a border because it's cheap and easy. But cheap and easy in gardening terms often actually means nearly indestructible. And that's exactly the case here. Marigolds are native to hot, sun-drenched regions of Mexico and Central America, and they've been cultivated for centuries. They were used ceremonially by Aztec and other Mesoamerican cultures long before European settlers ever saw them. That deep history in hot climates is exactly why marigolds shrug off August heat that would flatten a modern petunia. Growing marigolds is about as beginner-friendly as it gets: full sun, average soil, and modest watering once established. In fact, marigolds are one of the more forgiving flowers for someone who's newer to gardening or who simply can't be out there every single day fussing over the beds. The bonus benefit that surprises most people: marigolds release a scent from their leaves that many gardeners believe helps deter certain garden pests when planted near vegetables, which is part of why you'll often see them planted at the edges of tomato and vegetable beds in older kitchen gardens. Now, we're getting close to the end of this list, and I want to tell you, the next flower coming up is one of the toughest and most surprising on the entire list. But before we get there, let's talk for a second about something important. If you're watching this and thinking about a specific person, a parent, a spouse, a neighbor, who's been struggling with their garden every August, send them this video. Genuinely. A lot of people just don't know that the flowers they were taught to buy aren't the ones built to survive a real summer. And this one video could save someone a whole season of frustration and wasted money at the garden center. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this channel is entirely about giving you gardening information that actually works for real yards, real budgets, and real time constraints. Not just what looks good in a magazine photo. Subscribing means you won't miss the next one. Now, let's get into the final 2 flowers, because I saved 2 of the toughest for last. List item 6, Gomphrena/Globe Amaranth. This next flower might be the least familiar name on this list, but once you see it, you'll probably recognize it, because it used to be everywhere. Gomphrena, often called Globe Amaranth, produces these small, round, clover-like blooms in deep purple, pink, and white that look almost like they're made of felt. And here's the surprising part. Those blooms are so sturdy that Gomphrena is one of the very few flowers that can be dried and will hold both its color and shape for months, even years, which is exactly why it was such a staple in old farmhouse gardens, where dried flower arrangements were common decoration through the winter. That same toughness that makes it a great dried flower is what makes it nearly bulletproof in August heat. Gomphrena thrives in poor soil, needs very little water once established, and genuinely seems to get better as the season gets hotter and drier. It's one of the few flowers that will still be blooming strong in late September, when almost everything else has given up. To grow it, direct sow in full sun after the last frost, and again, resist the urge to overwater or over-fertilize. This is a flower that performs best when you basically leave it alone. The bonus benefit: because the blooms are so long-lasting, Gomphrena is one of the best flowers for beginner crafters who want to try drying and preserving flowers for wreaths or arrangements. It's nearly foolproof compared to most other flowers. And now, for the final flower on this list, the one I genuinely think might surprise you the most. If you've stayed with me this far, you're clearly someone who actually wants a garden that works, not just one that looks nice for a photo in May before falling apart by July. That already puts you ahead of most people standing in the garden center this week. This last flower is the one I'd genuinely plant first if I only had room for one. Here it is. Black-eyed Susan. Black-eyed Susan might be the single toughest, most forgiving flower on this entire list, and it's one almost everyone over 60 has seen growing wild along a roadside or fence line at some point in their life, because that's genuinely where it thrives best. This is a native North American wildflower, which means it evolved specifically for our climate, our heat, our humidity, our unpredictable rainfall, rather than being bred in a greenhouse for shelf appeal. That single fact is why it holds up in August better than almost anything else you could plant. Black-eyed Susans tolerate poor soil, drought, intense sun, and even a fair amount of neglect, and many varieties will come back year after year as a perennial rather than needing to be replanted every spring, which means the work you put in once can genuinely keep paying off for years. To grow them, plant in full sun in average or even poor soil, and water only during establishment. After that first year, many gardeners find they barely need to water them at all except during the most extreme dry spells. The bonus benefit here is one that matters a lot if you're gardening for the long haul. Black-eyed Susans reseed themselves readily and often spread gently over time, which means a single modest planting can slowly fill in a bed over a few seasons without you spending another dime on new plants. This is the flower I'd tell any beginner to start with. And honestly, if you only take one flower from this entire list, this is the one. So let's go back to where we started, a garden center full of flowers that won't survive August. Here's what I want you to walk away with today. It was never about trying harder. It was never about watering more, or fussing more, or buying a better fertilizer. It was about choosing flowers that were built for the job in the first place. Zinnias, MossRose, 4 o'clocks, Cosmos, Marigolds, Gomphrena, and Black-eyed Susan. Every single one of these has survived generations of real gardens, real heat waves, and real neglect, without needing to be coddled. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. Next time you're at the garden center in May, looking at those flashy new hybrids under the grow lights, ask yourself whether you're buying something built for a 6-week photo or something built for your actual August. Here's what I'd love for you to do now. Pick just one flower from this list, the one that spoke to you most, and try it this season, even if it's just in one small pot or one small strip of soil. Then come back and tell me in the comments how it did. And before you go, I want to ask you something. Which of these flowers reminds you most of somebody in your life? A parent, a grandparent, a neighbor down the street? Tell me their story in the comments. I read every one, and honestly, those stories are my favorite part of making these videos. If this helped you, subscribing means you'll be here for the next one, because there's a lot more of this old, forgotten gardening knowledge worth bringing back. I'll see you in the next video.